Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when you understand the power of your own story. My guest this week is Henry Hughes, and he is a Deaflympian, a trustee, and an advocate. Henry and I talked a lot about his work and what made him want to get involved in advocacy and change making throughout our conversation. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Henry Hughes.
So my name is Henry Hughes. I am a Deaf Olympian. I've represented Australia 3 times at the 2017 Deaf Olympics in Turkey, 2019 World Deaf Swimming Championships, and then the latter last year in 2023, I was the Australian captain for the World Deaf Swimming Championships in Argentina. That was when I'm a decorated medalist. Got won 2 bronze medals. Thank God I did. Hopefully, I would be very disappointed if I didn't at that competition. And I do a lot of advocacy work. My journey in advocacy started as a youth volunteer, and I am a trustee now. Just goes to show that from 13 years old when I started to 20 now, within a space of 7 years, I got myself all the way up here. And then now I've moved here to the UK, where my dream was always to represent Britain on international competitions. No disrespect to Australia. Australia has, given me a life in the ups and downs, but it was always Britain that I wanted to represent. So that's why you see me here.
We have a lot to talk about, Henry, and thank you so much for sharing that introduction. Let's go back to the very beginning when you mentioned, I think you said you were 13 and you were just getting started as an advocate. What was the path like for you to get started making change?
Yes, so my first advocacy role was the Swimming New South Wales Youth Advisory Panel. And that's when I was 13 or 14, I can't remember now, maybe 14. But prior to that, I suffered from a lot of discrimination. I was in a country like Australia, where it's more predominantly white than it is diverse, especially in sports. Swimming was one of those sports that's so revealing of your body, that it clearly to tell who's the odd one out in the pool. And I was always felt like the odd one out in the pool, being being South Asian descent, being a deaf person as well. I always had a backstep. I always started my race 20 meters before where everyone else started, because of the positioning of where everyone were in life. And because of that, I was bullied, I was assaulted, I mean, you name it, I've probably gone through it. That drove into me, that really drove me to wanting to quit swimming. I wanted to quit swimming 3 times over the last 7 years. But there were some key moments in my life that deterred me away from it. And the first one was advocacy. It was because I was with the Swimming New South Wales Youth Advisory Panel. I joined because I wanted to change things in swimming in New South Wales because of everything I've experienced. And that little bit of power and uh, advocacy that I experienced, seeing the what I've done with Swimming New South Wales, it put into me this sense of, my God, change does work. You can help people. And since then, I've gone on to do many roles after that, and it all had my backstory. Always came from my swimming career, but the first instance would have been, before I had my first role.
That is so great to hear. And I think it's amazing that you were able to take some of those negative experiences and make them into something really positive by advocating for others and raising awareness. And I think it's just great to hear that. So, you mentioned that you moved from Australia to the UK, and I would love for you to share a little bit about how that experience affected your work. How has your advocacy changed from living in Australia to moving and, of course, living in the UK now?
Yes, so for context, I moved to the UK in January, and it's now August now. So it's been about 8 months since I've left, and left my old life behind. And the things that changed since I've moved here is that my roles in advocacy have been to the next step. So the last role I had in Australia, I had some roles that were still continuing, but the last role I had in Australia was a committee member for engagement, sustainability, and fundraising at Reach Out Australia, a digital online mental health platform. And that was on the back of me being a youth ambassador and a youth volunteer for them for a while. So I started to get into actual advocacy and actual what can we change. So when I moved here, I became the Youth Advisory Board member for both the EY Foundation, helping social mobility, helping young people on free school meals get the access to education and skills that they need and work experience that they need to get into the workforce. And then I've also joined the Mixed Youth Advisory Board, just helping young people in general for all sorts of issues that young people face. And that was the big change that I've experienced. It's now being someone that's making the decision on behalf of young people that is advising on that aspect. And I didn't want to leave my advocacy career behind in Australia. It could have been very easy for me to say, look, I've had a great advocacy career in Australia. I'm going to the UK. I'm just going to go there, swim, study, and that's it. But that's just not me because I built my identity and I built my story on my experiences in swimming, and that was always going to carry with me regardless. And I think even if I didn't have those roles to begin with, I was always going to somehow stumble in. And then I became an I Will ambassador, which was it was something that I was really looking for. I really wanted an advocacy role to help people get into advocacy because it's what saved me and saved my life. And I believe that there can be, there's young people sitting in their bedrooms all day doing nothing. That's what I was doing in some aspect. You can go and do things from your bedroom. I was a homeschooler. I studied in my room, I ate in my room, I watched Netflix in my room, I watched YouTube in my room, I read in my room, and so I did everything in my room, and I was able to build that process of how to advocate. And then now it got announced that I was a trustee at Board for Racial Diversity UK. So aiming to help trustee boards across the country be more diverse. We've seen what's happened in recent times that, if decisions are not being reviewed and across a society consensus that represents everyone, it can often lead to outcomes that doesn't make everyone happy. And we want to make sure that we're doing our best to do that. And that's why I got involved.
That all sounds very exciting, and I'm looking forward to following along with all of the work that you're doing in these different roles. So, with these exciting opportunities, some of which you are just getting started, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're hoping to accomplish in these roles in the future? Tell me about what you're looking forward to when it comes to all of these different parts of your advocacy work.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to first of all starting college. I'm starting college in September. So I don't I people always ask me, "You're so busy, Henry, and then now you're starting college." I'm like, "Yeah, well, welcome to my life." And I see it all as a hobby, so I don't see it as a burden. So it's my pleasure to do all of it. And I always find a way to help. So I mean, the project that I'm working with, like you said, with I Will, for example. I am very much looking at, my social action is to help young people get into advocacy and specifically young athletes because I believe sports, there are so many issues that intertwine with sport, yet not enough people talk about the issues in sport. Even like mental health. It's only recently because of great athletes like Simone Biles and Adam Peaty and Naomi Osaka, they all speak about mental health, but this is so recent. And I think sport is so behind the world with a lot of these issues, and I think there should be more young athletes talking about it. So I am just, working somehow to build a way to do that with I Will. With the mix, for example, I do a lot of writing for articles for them because, they've come and said to me, and I mentioned it to them that Henry, we don't have enough deaf content. We have deaf readers. They have nothing to look at. So could you write some article? So I've wrote a few articles for them since I've joined, and now I'm going to be writing more. The current trustee role, I've started now. I'm getting to know my new trustee members. We're all looking forward to meeting with each other soon, and I'm very excited to see what my role as a trustee is going to be really focused on because obviously I'm a first-time trustee, so I'm just sitting on the sideline going, ready, wherever you need my help, I'll help you with.
That all sounds so exciting, Henry. And you have all of this going on with college starting, and you just have so much to look forward to. So, congratulations. I have one more question for you. Lots of young people want to create change, but they may not know how to get started with that work. What advice do you have for those people who may be listening?
Yeah, so I always it is easier than you think it is because it was easy for me from Australia, which is compared to the UK, it's a very, very small country in terms of population size. I think it's a third of the UK's population size. So think about opportunities too. It's been very scarce, but I still somehow managed to be able to get all the roles I had in Australia. I would just say you research if you really do want to look for things, there is things out there. That's what I did. I would have spent the whole day, let's say in Australia, for example, searching up something on Google like youth advisory board position or youth advisory panel positions. You play around with the words and you'll see so many applications that are open. The great thing is always to do is to think of timings of the year. So if we're in the summer right now, it would be so great because people are actually planning from September onward when universities start or after the school holiday. And so do your research and then sometimes you have to be flexible with the issues. If people I first started doing sports, I never thought I was going to do mental health. Never ever thought I was going to do mental health. Then during the Women Youth Advisory panel, they told us, look, mental health is something that is rising amongst young people and definitely in young swimmers. We need to do something about it. Then I was assigned a charity called Reach Out Australia, and everyone got assigned other charities, and we had to advocate for our charity and pitch it to the panel that this is the best charity. And then I fought for Reach Out, and then Reach Out won. We delivered 30,000 members mental health resources, and Reach Out came and heard about that, and then they poached me. Reach Out said to Swimming News Ad, well, we love this guy. He built this partnership between the both of us. Do you mind if we take him as a youth volunteer? And the youth volunteer and an ambassador, committee member, and then I was able to come here. So it's an example of how fast things can spiral if you keep poking. And also look at your own story. I believe your own story is a great way to market your own profile. When I say athlete and deaf, it doesn't spring into your mind social mobility. It doesn't spring into your mind, I will use social action movement. It's about profiling yourself and understanding who you really are. And if you don't understand who you are, you will find it along the way in your advocacy journey. That's what I did. I never used to call myself a South Asian deaf boy because I was just like I was deaf. But the more I saw people expressing themselves who they are and how proud they were to wear their hearts on their sleeve, a bit something in me was like, no, I'm recognizing things of me that I'd never typically heard before in Australia. And that's why, doing your research, understanding who you are, reaching out to other people and asking them, do you know of any opportunities or that you have seen? If you're old enough to have LinkedIn, you'll find that it will be a great place for advocates and for advocacy. And there are a lot of, youth social workers that are posting opportunities on there. So that's my bit of advice, and hope you take great heart in it.
I really enjoyed recording this episode with Henry and learning more about all of the work that he's doing as an advocate. I want to highlight that last piece of advice that Henry shared about understanding your own story, because I think it is so valuable to figure out how your experiences, your identity, your talents, your interests, and other parts of your identity might help you to make change. Sometimes it helps to join a community of other changemakers to understand your story a bit better, and it might also help to learn from other changemakers who share their stories and inspire other people to make change. Our experiences are such a valuable tool, and Henry is a great example of how change comes when you understand the power of your own story. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Henry on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I've included those links in the description of this episode. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be The Change Media Network. I am working on expanding Be The Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys!